You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, episode 16.
You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, the #1 resource for growing your function musician business. If you're a solo wedding singer, part of a 12-piece luxury show band, or anything in between, and want to learn from other successful musicians, you're in the right place.
You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast. I am your host, Jack Twiner. If this is your first time listening, then welcome. If you're a regular listener, then welcome back. This podcast is for function musicians who are looking to grow their business, book more gigs, hear some inspiring stories, and generally just learn from others who've been doing it successfully for years. I have a super interesting guest lined up for you today. Someone who had a really interesting idea that when he was in a quiet period, there weren't many gigs coming in, he decided to just book his own gig. He booked a venue, sold some tickets, and it's become hugely successful for him. And we get into loads of other cool stuff as well. Firstly though, I would genuinely love some feedback from you. I would love to know what you're liking and what you're not liking, maybe some guest ideas. It's really hard work keeping this going, and it's also kind of lonely doing a podcast. So help me out a little bit. Give me some ideas for future episodes. To do that, you can just find me on Facebook, or ideally just send me a quick message on Instagram, which is @InFocusRecordingCo, or you can email me at feedback@thefulltimefunctionmusicianpodcast.co.uk. The link will be in the episode bio. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Josh Hindle. You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, and on today's episode, I'm joined by Josh Hindle. Josh is an award-winning solo singer who performs around the world, not only as a swing and big band singer, but as a Michael Bublé tribute as well. He also has performed at over 300 weddings around the UK, as well as corporate and in many UK theatres with his touring tribute show. Josh, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to this one. I feel like we connected quite a while ago on Facebook and discussed having you on, but it's been it's taken a little bit of time to get you on here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think we've got a good list of topics to start discussing today. And we'll get into that. But first of all, I'd just like to start the show by finding out where you got started and the journey that brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I started in musical theatre, really, which is probably where a lot of singers begin on the amateur dramatic scene. So my first show was when I was 10 years old, but it was basically because all my family were involved with it. So it was kind of instilled. I used to go and watch all the shows and things. And when I was 10, which is the age that you're allowed to sort of get into your first shows, I was in Oliver as an orphan. And I was in all the musicals, drama at school and things like that. All the local Amdram societies doing all sorts of different shows, from the traditional ones to the modern ones. And then it got to a point really where I did my first gig when I was 18 with a couple of friends at a local Indian restaurant in the village. And I remember I was absolutely terrified, and it just kind of went how it went, like they do with most of these first gigs. You've got all your words in front of you and things like that. And I remember that gig being really, really good and felt really rewarding in the end. And I just decided that, I want to kind of do this as a job kind of thing. And I've always been a person who just learnt on the go, really, and learnt by doing, which is one of my little beliefs that I stick by quite a lot. Yeah. And it was just a bug that, that reward of people, cheering and dancing along to what you're doing. And I wasn't the best singer either at that time. And but again, the more you do things, the better you get. So that's how it all started, really.
I feel like, maybe I've had two or three other people who do like tributes or whatever on the show. They all sort of started in that amateur dramatics scene as well. And I guess that kind of fulfills that both sides of your interests, where you get to do performing and singing at the same time.
You do learn a lot from doing something as a hobby. But again, it's all I've said to everybody who says, I can't sing, I can't get on stage, how do you get up in front of all those people? It's just confidence. That's all it is. Yeah. I always say that anybody can be a singer. A lot of it is in your character and your confidence and how you are as an act, rather than, the singing is important, but for people just starting out, then it's just confidence, getting up there and doing, because you learn so much and by working with other people as well. You know, surrounding yourself by people who have been doing it a long time is just key as well.
Yeah. So after those first couple of gigs then, where did you move on to next? What were you doing to sort of market yourself at that time, and what kind of gigs were you getting, I guess?
Yeah, so I was doing Facebook wasn't as big. I say back then, that makes me feel old.
Yeah, you're aging yourself there.
But it has come on. Social media is massive now, as everybody knows. But back then, it was just the usual pub club circuit where, you know, you sort of find your feet really. And because I was so dedicated and so passionate about swing and big band music, I'd sometimes had some absolutely shocking gigs. You know, I was singing at Working Men's Club for, 30 men, just doing these, Sinatra and the swing stuff. And if I look back on myself now, if I was in the audience, I'd be like, why are you singing this stuff? Do something upbeat, do something pop, that people are going to dance to. But it was just, again, you didn't know that at the time when you were singing. I just went and did it, and I stuck true to the music of what I loved. And yeah, sometimes it didn't work out, with certain gigs and things, but some had me back time and time again. And, but yeah, you just learned a lot about doing it and, singing in all these different venues. I still get more nervous now singing in a small bar for 30 people than I would for 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's so different, and just, you kind of, when you've got a lot of people there, they all merge into one. But when you got people sat inches from your face, I still find it really, really nerve wracking. But
yeah. When did you start moving into the wedding scene?
My first wedding, I think, was when I was 19.
Fairly early on then.
Yeah, really early on. I mean, because I was sort of surrounded by people. I knew what I kind of wanted to do, and at that time, it was going from the bars and clubs to the wedding scene. There was a natural progression for me, and I was surrounded a lot of the time. I'm friends with quite a lot of wedding singers, so I was kind of watching what they were doing and how they were marketing themselves and things like that. And my first wedding gig was actually to sing somebody's first dance as well. I remember it like yesterday. It was brilliant. Really enjoyed it. I look back now, and it was. It's funny because you've got all the what looks like old gear and old suit on. It looks, and the pictures of that wedding are in black and white. Even though it wasn't long time ago, it still feels really retro for me for, how many things I've done since that. But yeah, that was my first wedding. And then, like I said to everybody else, you do one wedding, you get the photos and video from it, and then you get another booking and another booking. And it just went from there really. But back then it was kind of all still business cards and, the old leafleting side, wedding fairs and things like that. So, it was pretty much handing out business cards, but still doing, your bars and pubs and clubs and stuff, because that's where kind of people came and saw you and said, oh, I'm getting married actually. So it's weird. It was weird back then, but now it's a lot easier to get yourself out there in front of people. With social media.
So is social media a big part of your sort of strategy now, or have you've been doing it a while now? I imagine a lot of it's just word of mouth and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky actually that a lot of stuff just comes my way. It's quite hard when I have a few friends who ask about what to do on social media and things, and I kind of go blank because I don't use it much to promote myself. Now and again, I'll post in a few groups and things like that, and I'll do, a few, paid advertising and things like that. But yeah, a lot is literally just word of mouth and through my website and things like that, really. And people who just see me at the shows that I do, very little comes from sort of, Instagram messages and things like that. I probably, in all honesty, I probably don't use it as much or as well as I should, because I'm just so busy. I don't have that time to properly go into it. So I do a lot of, cover videos of me singing and things like that, and just putting things on stories and things, and just more keeping people.
Yeah, stay on top of mind, I'd say.
But you will go through you'll go through a spell of just disappearing for a while, because when you're so busy, you do forget to, let everybody know what you're doing and keep that engagement and keep that following going. But it's so easy just to be all, tunnel vision with work and just completely forget to promote yourself, because it's important to show people what you're doing as well.
Yeah. So I mean, as I said, I think that's a lucky position to be in, and I guess it comes from having been doing it quite a while now, and just working hard at it, and making connections and networking and stuff like that. But using social media to stay top of mind is still quite important, I think. So what are some of the things, like maybe a few years ago then, that have helped you to get to the position where you are now, where you don't really need to use social media as much, and you can rely on like the network that you've built?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big believer in good photos and good video. I think video is massive for any entertainment, anybody that's out there doing music or weddings, musicians, DJs, anything like that. The video is just absolutely key. Somebody told me that quite a while ago. Just sort of doing vlogs. It used to be, long vlogs, and I still do quite a few of them, actually. I put one on my Instagram the other day, went back to basics, and I thought, I'm going to do a vlog again. Just from loading your car to driving there to getting to the venue, setting up, showing the night and things like that. So good video and photos, I think, now is what people like to see.
Yeah, it's almost essential, isn't it? Especially if you're using agents and things like that. But I know that you mentioned when we spoke before that you don't rely on agents at all, at least anymore. Did you in the past? Or
I mean, I think because I was so indulged in being Sinatra, Bublé, Dean Martin kind of singer, a lot of it's a niche market, really, but it does get you the better gigs, I feel. I think in the past, when I was growing up, in my early 20s into mid 20s, I must have wrote to every agent going. But because I was so stubborn about, no, I'm a swing singer. I don't want to do just any old music just to entertain anybody. I want to do what I enjoy and because I know I do it well. And a lot of the agents were like, I can't sell that to, somebody's 30th birthday or things like that, or venues that want to keep people in dancing. So it is a niche market. So I think by getting knocked back by quite a lot of agents made me think, right, I'm just going to do it myself then.
Yeah.
And I got this, I still do. I'm still very independent, very self-driven. If I want to do something or I want to sing somewhere, I'll just try and put myself there, if that makes sense. It sounds a bit odd, but it can be done. And I think I'm just sort of brainwashed into doing things myself now rather than, waiting for people to kind of do it for me. It sounds a bit not selfish, but it's just how I am and just how I like to get to where I want to be, really.
Yeah, no, I work in quite the same way. I think and maybe it's just a lack of, or I just don't like giving up control, and it's maybe a negative thing for me, at least sometimes, because I can't delegate anything to anyone else, even though they could probably do it better than me. It's just I find it hard to like let it go. But
I get told all the time, you need someone to help you. You need to do this. You need to do that. I'm just like, I can't, because I'll just be, rubbing my hands thinking I need to do it myself, because I know I can get it done in my own time frame. I don't have to wait for anybody. I get that building a team sometimes is important, but I'm just very self-driven.
Yeah, and on that note as well, I know you when we previously spoke, you said about you started putting on your own shows for gigs. If you were a bit quiet sometimes, you're like, well, I'm just gonna put my own show on then.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it was I think it was sort of after. It was around COVID, or maybe been like the first year out when bookings were. There was a particular year when a lot of people who I spoke to were really booked up, and the other half of the people I spoke to were really slow. Not much booked in, and I'm like, I'm the same. I was like getting bookings with like a few months' notice. And I remember that one year I looked ahead in my diary like I do. I looked ahead to December. And it was normally the time of year when people would be, getting booked up for December because people book, up to 12 months in advance for festive period. And I had all these key dates, like as a singer or as a supplier, these dates in December, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, they're all the weekends in December. And I remember looking at my calendar and they were all empty. And I'm like, what's going on? So I thought, actually, I think it was nearer December. It might have even been something like September, October. And I was like, I should be booked up now, like the other years. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to book myself up. I'm going to book myself, if that makes sense. So it was a local venue, about 10 minutes from where I lived. And I'd done it the previous year. I just booked sort of one date for like a Christmassy Bublé night and booked the venue and then sold my own tickets for it, did all the posters, the Facebook advertising for it, and it sold out. And so I thought, right, that's one down. And then we had a waiting list of just loads of people wanting to come to it. So I thought, right, you know what? I'll put 4 more on. And they sold so quick as well. So I ended up with 5 gigs, getting paid probably double what I would have done if I'd have just been booked by, somebody else.
Yeah.
So I was just like, it just opened my eyes. And even though it was only a small venue for around, I think it was 80 people that came, there were 5 nights of that. And it just opened my eyes to a whole new way of, things I can get into with the business, really. And it snowballed from there. So I do it now. If I've got like sort of empty weekends, I will look different areas of the country and just put a show on.
Yeah.
And get people there. And the good thing with that is I get people there who are coming to see me or the show or the kind of music, the Bublé fans or swing fans. So you're not just sort of rocking up at a venue with 50 drunks who, are not necessarily interested in you being there. Yeah. I love that captive audience and people being there for you to watch you. They want to be there. And it's just a bug now, and it's forever ongoing, and it's a big part of my business now, really.
Yeah, that's great, man. I've not heard of anyone else doing that. So really smart idea.
They will do now.
Well, yeah. So how do you advertise that, or how did you start advertising that originally?
It was all Facebook marketing, Facebook ads.
Yeah.
That was literally, and because I put sort of Bublé with the Christmas feel, and we did mince pies and mulled wine. It was a self-seller, basically. I didn't really need to do much. So that now was kind of evolved from these tiny little intimate concerts with minimal setup to a UK theatre tour. And this is in the space of like 2 years. It's just absolutely blown up. And we did our first tour with it last year with my big band. And we were filling venues from 800 to 1,500 people. And just, again, the same thing, just people just went mad for it. And myself and the band have been through quite a lot of not really successful shows. We tried to get the Bublé show out quite a long time ago with a promoter, and it kind of ended badly, and we were all a bit deflated. And so last year when we were stood there, standing ovation for 1,000 people, we just all looked at each other like, this is where we should be. So yeah, it's from putting my own little gigs on, it's just snowballed to that, and it was just incredible last year. So yeah.
Is that your sort of primary focus now then?
Yeah, so I'm sticking to because Bublé's got, I'm a massive fan of Michael Bublé. I started out doing swing, Rat Pack, big band music for probably ever since I started, really. I've still got the original recording I did of Come Fly With Me, and it's terrible. It's so bad when I listen back to it. It just started from there, and I'll always keep that to sort of the winter time because Bublé has got such a massive Christmas album. But because of demand, we were just doing it in December last year. But because it's so popular, we've got about 25 shows now from October to the end of December all over the country. So it's a mammoth task, but it's good.
And is that still you guys organising that and putting that on, or do you have outside help now?
No, I literally do that myself. So I don't use any promoter. I refuse to. Now, because I know that I can do it myself, so I sort of spend like January to April. We've literally just confirmed December, this year's tour. So I'll spend every January to April booking the venues, and it's really hard to get into venues. You do really need a promoter if you've got a new show, because they are already in the theatres with other shows that they've got. So they can literally just walk into the theatre and say, I've got this show, what dates can I have? And the theatre will just go, oh yeah, you can have these. But when you're a newbie, you've really got to try so hard. But what I did last year, when we did all the shows of the venues that I knew I wanted to come back to, got a promo video done of the night.
Yeah.
So that next year, not only I could send that to the venue and say, wow, look what we did last year, can we rebook in? I can then use that to sell tickets for the return show, basically. So we tend to do that in the winter because people love that it's cozy, it's Christmassy, we do it sort of by candlelight as well.
Oh, nice.
So people love that. So sort of next year, I'm going to look to add a few more shows where I'm not in them, so I can literally, it's not as much pressure to sort of, because last year I was doing the lighting, I was doing the setting up, doing the hotels, doing the driving, and then it gets to like 7 o'clock and you're like, oh, got to be on stage fronting this show in half an hour. And it's just, I love it because I prefer being stressed. I feel like I'm not stressed, under pressure.
Yeah.
No one likes being stressed, but I prefer being under pressure and on the ball all the time rather than
working well under pressure.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then sort of throughout the rest of the year, I do my usual solo stuff abroad in the UK. I still do functions, corporate stuff, cruise. Got my first cruise contracts this year, which I've been trying so long to get on, but I've got on now doing my Bublé show. Whereas in the past, you've had to kind of almost change your act to get on the cruise ship. So you might have to suddenly do an 80s act. And I'm like, I don't want to do an 80s act. I want to go on and do what I'm good at. So this is through an agency. She's done an absolute brilliant job for me and got me on as Michael Bublé tribute and swing show. So so my first one's in 3 weeks. So the whole year, from going full out weddings, I've always said to people, I've got to a stage now where I'll always do weddings. I'll never turn them down because I do enjoy them, but I don't like being the same. I like changing things and doing a bit of everything. So I'll go out as me singing, in sort of corporate stuff and nice venues and things. I'll go out as the Bublé, the swing with my band. But I just like doing a massive variety of different things. It just keeps things interesting and challenging. Yeah,
for sure. So a couple of years ago, or a year ago maybe, you were on Starstruck.
Yes.
The TV show. Mm-hmm. I'd love to know a little bit more about your experience on that.
Yeah, that was such a good experience. I mean, you watch it back now. It's on YouTube, actually. We were Team Bublé. So again, I got on as Bublé. And it was a twist on the old Stars in Their Eyes with Matthew Kelly that we used to watch. But rather than it being one person, you were in a team of three. And so you were in an episode with four other teams. So there was like a Team Cher, Team Elton John, Team Robbie Williams. And I think luckily it was in Team Bublé. So I was like really happy because I knew I could do that well. And then that was actually in lockdown when it was filmed.
Oh, really?
So it was when they did series 2, I think all the contestants could probably, mix with each other and have a good time. But we were very much like we had to do COVID testing every time we went down. This all came from me doing an online festival in lockdown. We created a Facebook group and we did this a festival where all singers performed on Facebook Live in this group. And we raised, I think, £13,000 in over a weekend. Middle of lockdown, people dressed up in the gardens and things and posted all the pictures online and things. And I was spotted from not only sort of singing on it, but organising it and hosting it as well. But it also mixed with me actually applying for the show. So, I went through about 3 rounds of auditions, trains to London and back, for callbacks and things. And then when we found out we got down to the final 4, it was full steam ahead, really, onto the sort of live studio recording. So, yeah, it was exciting. It was amazing.
Yeah. I guess my main question is from that is how did being on that affect your career afterwards? Did it bring in loads more work? Did you have a higher price to go out for now or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people still think that everybody that was on that show cling on to the fact that it was on the show, and it's yes, why not do that? But for me, it was just the exposure of being on it, and the video footage that you got from it was probably unlike any promotional video you'll ever get. It was on a glitzy stage. It was done with, high quality studio footage. And so if I took anything from it, it was the promotional material that, money can't buy.
Yeah.
Promotional material. The photos that we got and everything, the TV company sent them to you and things, and you could use it as promotion. And yeah, I do like to milk it, but the ITV I seen on TV logo, not for me, it's not like a gloating thing. It's just a marketing thing.
Yeah.
It does. And I've said to everybody else, get it on your posters, because, there will come a time when, you might not include it anymore and things like that. But for me, even if people don't care about it, they see it on a poster and it just differentiates yourself a little bit from maybe other shows and makes you stand out. Even though we were only on it for, the 2-3 moments in the spotlight, we didn't sort of get to the finals or anything like that. But from a marketing point of view, that was the best thing. And yeah, I got loads of bookings from it, and a lot of agents were interested in people who were on that show, because if you're a sort of agency, you work with tribute acts, that was your key moment. You could just sit at home writing everybody down and go and contact them all. But yeah, it was more like a confidence thing, and it just propelled you further. And then from that, I got on as a supporting singer for Jane McDonald, sort of she'd watched it and things like that. And it just...
Did she contact you?
Yeah, well, it was through, it was actually through a couple who were organising a festival in, I can't remember who it was now. I was talking to them about something. I can't remember what it was. It was something like where they needed some information from me. It might have been for a gig or something. And they said, if you could let us know before this date, because we're flying out to Italy. I can't remember where the country was. We're going to do a site visit for a festival. I was like, all right, what kind of festival? And it might have been something like folk music and things like that. And it just gone on from there, saying, I'm a singer, I do this and that. And they kind of just looked at each other and went, And, little did we know they were looking for a support artist for Jane McDonald in Rhodes in 2022, I think it was. Yeah, 2022. And literally a day later, I had this contract in front of me. So it was mad how it happened to just meet them that day and things. But, yeah, she's obviously vetted me and things like that. And I said when we were on all these big things, don't sort of dwell on it too much. Just take it in and just tick it off and move on to something else. When when all the hype was out about Starstruck and things, I was thinking already of the next year.
Yeah.
And thinking, right, what can I do now? And then the Jane McDonald thing came along. So I'm always constantly thinking, I don't like to dwell on it, but I'll use the experiences to promote myself and to market myself, really.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to be, man, and real humble as well. So, yeah, we just talked a tiny bit about fee there. So one thing we discussed before was sticking to your fees and maybe how to price yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where would you start with if you were just starting out? How do you price yourself and how do you stay consistent with it?
I think it depends what you're doing it for, first of all. I mean, if you're in a full-time job, that pays all the bills and everything like that, then, and if you're going out singing at a weekend as a hobby, then fair enough. A lot of people just take what people pay. But if you're going out as a business and you're doing it for a living, that's when you kind of need to set your own pricing, like a price list, basically. So I'd say for people starting out, it just depends where you want to be and what kind of singer you want to be. You've got to have an identity. And there's nothing against people doing it for a hobby. That's absolutely fine. That's how I kind of started out, really, until I realised that, I wanted to do it for a living. So I think you've got to decide where you want to be, what kind of singer you want to be, and where you see yourself performing, basically, and that will sort of determine in your head what you want to earn.
That ties in quite well with an episode that's just gone out as we're recording this week, with setting goals and picking, like, having that like end vision and of where you want to be, and has something to aim for, so you can start from there. But how do you stay strong with sticking to that when there's other people that are undercutting and offering lower prices?
I think it's if you're going out on a Saturday night, you're not really bothered where you sing. If you enjoy doing the pubs and the clubs and things, which is where I started out, that's fine. You will get that because the venue that you're singing in will say this is what you will get paid. And you will get people who will come along and say, I'll do 45 minutes for 50 quid. It happens. As horrible as that sounds, it does happen. So the pub then is like, why am I going to pay you 150, 200 pound when I can have Bob around the corner singing 50 quid for 45 minutes? So it just depends where you put yourself and where you want to sing. Because if you want to get into the weddings and the corporate things and put on your own shows, and you determine your own your own fee, really, and you can price yourself. You can basically say this is what my cost is. It'll take time if you're just starting out, but you'll get to a stage where you can say this is my fee. Obviously, experience comes into that. You can't just sort of rock up on your first ever gig and say, my fee's 450 quid and things like that. You've got to kind of have some sort of backup for it, whether it's experience, whether it's, the equipment you use is thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
But again, it all comes into the marketing side as well. You've got to, if you want the bigger fees, you've got to give yourself an identity, and you've got to look not expensive, but you've got to look a premium act, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you got to look appropriate for what you're trying to sell.
Exactly, yeah. So one of my friends was asking me the other week, he knows where he wants to be. He wants to get on the cruise ships and things like that. So you've got to plan in your head where you want to be and put yourself there. And if you want to do it for a full-time living, you've got to almost pull yourself away from the pub scene, if that makes sense. No disrespect to people that do perform in pubs, because it's a vital part of the entertainment industry. But if you want like I say, I started out in it, but now I've kind of, as I got into sort of mid-20s, I pulled myself away from that. And you have got to decide, if you want to do that anymore. You've got to stop doing those venues if you want to do the corporate, the cruises and things like that, because it's just the perception that you give out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a saying as well that because sometimes obviously if you're getting offered money to play in these pubs and stuff, you don't want to turn it down, but sometimes you have to walk past the small pile of money to get to the bigger pile of money. And that means turning down stuff that doesn't pay so well sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just got to market yourself in the way you want to go. So if you want to do sort of the cruise ships and things, you've got to have a really good show reel, and you've got to just be persistent with it and confident in yourself. And you've got to spend money on yourself. You've got to invest in quality video, and quality.
It's investing in your business at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I see it every day. And I do reach out to these people sometimes without being too sort of intrusive. And just sort of saying I would recommend getting a better poster done and things like that, because, and again, it's hard because when you first start out, you do anything you can to sort of get in front of people singing, because that's what people love to do. I think marketing and looking good and having a good Facebook page and pictures will, in the long run, decide where you end up singing. If you're looking elegant and posh and you've got really smart pictures, you will get the weddings and the corporate gigs, and and as long as you stay consistent with it, you will get onto the higher end bookings. But if you sort of, you're singing in a t-shirt and jeans and somebody's filming you on a mobile phone, again, if that's what you do, that's absolutely fine. I'll never sort of say that's wrong. But I think the better and high quality, it all depends what you want to do. If you're happy sort of doing that, that's amazing. If you get a buzz off just singing in front of people, it's perfect for you. But yeah, if people are looking to saying, look, how can I get corporate gigs and things like that? It's about looking smart. It's about looking expensive, if that makes sense.
Yeah. As a point on that as well, is I think by now, in this far into the whole podcast, if the people that listen to this are looking to grow their businesses, they're looking to up their prices, they're looking to improve and move out of those things. So I don't think it's a negative thing to say. It's all about growth.
Yeah, I'll never sort of say, the people, the singers who sing in bars, clubs, and still on the working men's clubs and things like that. It's great. I love it. I still do it from time to time. In January and things or if it's quiet between, early bits of the year, or if somebody says, I've got a massive beer garden, there's going to be hundreds of people there, I need to sing. I'll never ever turn it down unless I'm, sort of already booked. So I think it depends. I think to get far, you need to have an identity. You need to stick to a genre of music, whether that's swing singer, soul singer, whether you're a tribute act. Because I think if you just go out like I did and, did a bit of swing, and then in the second set I think that follows my music taste, because it's just, I can go from 60s, 70s to Elvis to the Killers to, literally everything in between. But I think if you stick to a genre of music, you just polish that act over time, and you become more confident and consistent, and you deliver a better show, really. But I think if you just, you
become the expert.
Exactly, yeah. And it's always on these big TV shows. They always say, I don't think you know what kind of singer you are or what you want to be. And it's so true. And you can see when someone's so invested in the music that they are singing, whether they love soul music or they love rock and roll, and I think it becomes easier to market yourself, really, because you put yourself in front of people who want to see you. And there's nothing better than doing a gig in front of hundreds of people who are there because they love the music. I've done so many gigs where I've been booked as a Bublé tribute, and they've not sort of even advertised that I'm there as a Bublé tribute. So they just think I'm a guy in a suit singing all these songs. And they'll come up to you and say, "Oh, do you know any Bob Dylan? Do you know any Adele and all Tina Turner?" I'm like, "I'm a Bublé tribute." So yeah, it's all about just looking ahead, planning ahead, and seeing where you want to be, and ultimately making connections with people who can get you there as well. But if you can't get there, try and put yourself there, like I did, I'd say.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. And I feel like that kind of segues nicely onto some of maybe your worst gigs and your best gigs and some of the good and bad experiences you've had, or just a little time to brag about some of the cool stuff you've done. Man, what have you got for us?
So, I think I'd never say a gig is the worst gig, because every gig you learn something and you get paid at the end of the day. But I remember it wasn't that long. Well, it probably was about 6 or 7 years ago now. And I turned up to a gig at a social club, and there was nobody there. Literally nobody. I sang to the bar staff for the full 2:45 minutes. They said, you can either go home or you can sing to us and still get paid. So that was, and they weren't even listening. So I was just thinking to myself for an hour and a half. And I had to do it because obviously they still had an ear on. I mean, I'd have said go home. But so I've sang to literally no people. It wasn't a bad gig, but I think probably one of the worst ones was, your likes of singing to it's so weird because you can sing to 6 people, do a garden party gig and have the best gig. But you can sing to, I remember doing one the other year, it was for, I think it was corporate, and there were about 150 people in the room. And they were all sat at the tables watching, really engrossed in things, but just did nothing. Like no clapping, no smiling. And your energy burns out. You're like, when you turn away just to put the next song, you're like stretching your face from smiling all the time. And they can be like the worst ones because there's people there. And you can do a gig the following night and do exactly the same songs and have a full dance floor. So I think those are, again, work, but some of them can be less rewarding in a weird way. But it changes every week. Like I say, you can perform to 10 people up to 1,000 people, and the bigger one could be the worst one, the smaller one could be the best one. Which takes me on to some of the best ones really that we did last year. I think we did 2 theatre shows. I love doing a theatre show because there's nothing better than walking out and everybody's facing your way in a theatre style seating. They're all watching you. You know that they've been looking forward to it all day, all weekend. And again, they're there to watch you and they're going to enjoy it, hopefully. So I think we did some of the theatre shows last year in Dundee. We had 800 people in the theatre and it was just absolutely chaotic by the end. They were all up dancing, standing ovation, cheering for the encore. And I think that was one of the best ones. And we did a show in Bath on the same tour for 1,000 people. And just the ripple of applause, when you finish a song and you just get that buzz and... they're some of the best ones. I think all the best ones have been sort of in a theatre setting, but I've had so many good gigs. Even when I started out, I did a pub gig, when I was in like a few years into my career, if you call. And that one I always remember putting it on Facebook. That's my best gig ever. And it was just literally 30 people in this small room, but they were having the best time singing along and there were a lot of friends there as well, which helped, but it just gives you, I think it's whatever gives you a buzz. And if you're getting a good, audience is key. If you're getting a good reaction from them, it just pushes you on, really does, and your confidence grows and everything like that. So I'd say everything's different. Every week's different. Like I've got a gig this Friday in Germany, and it's for a corporate gig, which, should, on paper, be incredible. But then I've got a gig the following night in Hull for probably 200 people. And I still don't know now which one's going to be better. So it's just, that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes each week different, really. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. So that pretty much brings it to an end. Is there anything else like that you want to discuss that I haven't asked or anything like that?
No, I think if people want to do something, just do it. The biggest thing I've ever learned from, being so independent and putting myself out as a sole business really and driving it forward myself is just doing something. And it's all over Instagram as well on the reels and things. If what was I saying the other day? If the risk doesn't scare you, it's not worth doing or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think I've seen a few friends now who have started putting their own events on. I'm like, yes, go on, just do it. Because that, to me, it's just brilliant. Rather than sort of, it goes back to it. If somebody's sort of, you've got a family, you've got kids, you've got bills to pay, being given work by agents and things like that is perfect. It's secure and fair play. But if you want to do something, you want to, like a couple of years ago, I was like, I really, really, really want to sing in that theatre. Now you could wait 5-10 years for an agent to come along and say, Josh, we've got an opening in this theatre. I'm interested in you and your band. You could wait for years for that. But I just went and booked it.
Yeah.
Put my own show on there and put myself there. And we're doing, one of the shows we're doing this year is at the Bridgewater Hall in Manchester. And it'll be my biggest gig ever. And I look down the website listings and it's just celebs. Like Miriam Margolyes and, you know, all these comedians and massive acts. And then there's me in the middle, and probably shouldn't be there, but I put myself there. And, you know, people have said, oh, you'll struggle to fill that place. A couple of have actually said that. I said, oh, just watch me go.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's taking control of your own destiny, right?
Yeah, it's risky. It is risky. Money-wise as well, it's a big investment, but when it pays off, it pays off. And it's just believing and just being confident, but quietly nervous as well. That's the mix of it, just kind of, you know, if you were just really arrogant and you were going out there like, oh, I'll book that, I'll sell that, then, you know, if something does come back and bite you, then it's, you know, things like that can happen. So it's being a bit cautious, but also just following your dreams, man. Just do it.
Yeah. Powerful ending, man. Nice one. Yeah. So if people would like to learn a little bit more about you or connect with you, where would you like to send them?
I'm on all social media as Josh Hindle Singer. Instagram, Josh Hindle Singer, TikTok, all the same. You know, reach out if anyone wants any advice on putting on their own things, or just a bit of, you know, pointing in the right direction of things. I like to help people as well. So I kind of feel I'm kind of there now where I can sort of start helping other people, whilst I've still got a lot of work to do this year on my own stuff. If people do want help and advice, I guess that's what this is about, really.
It's great stuff, man. It's been a pleasure. I feel like there's loads of good takeaways in this episode. So yeah, thanks again for coming on, man.
It's a pleasure.
Cheers, dude.
Thank you.
So there we go. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Just wanted to say thanks to Josh again for coming on. I really enjoyed that episode. I found this is just a really humble, nice guy, and with loads of interesting things to say. So that's it for this episode. Take it easy. Catch you next week for episode 17.